Okay, so picture this, right? A civilization so grand, so massive that its monuments are still around today.
Thousands of years later.
Yeah, thousands of years after its pharaohs ruled, a land of, those powerful gods, intricate rituals, and innovations that we can even see echoes of in our modern world.
Absolutely.
So today on the deep dive, we're venturing into the captivating realm of ancient Egypt.
That's right. And we've got some pretty fascinating material here that really, I think, gets under the skin of this incredible society beyond just the myths and legends.
For sure, for sure. So we have textual excerpts that offer insights into just how ingenious the ancient Egyptians were and their remarkable staying power, right? I mean, how long were they around?
Exactly. And our goal today isn't to just marvel at the spectacle, although it is amazing, but to
Yeah.
really understand what made this civilization so unique and why it continues to hold such a prominent place, I think, in our collective imagination, right?
Yeah, it's almost like everybody around the world knows something about ancient Egypt, even if it's just, the pyramids.
Exactly. It's really about uncovering the core insights that I think will really enrich your understanding of history.
I love it. Okay, so we're going way beyond the gold masks and colossal statues to reveal the complex and sophisticated society that lay beneath.
That's the goal.
Okay, so with a history spanning millennia, I mean, where do we even begin to get a handle on the story of ancient Egypt?
Well, a crucial first step is grasping the immense timescale involved.
Yeah.
Our sources remind us that ancient Egypt as a unified kingdom emerged around 3100 BCE with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under King Narmer.
Okay, so that's when everything got going, but I mean, how long did it actually last?
And what's truly astonishing is that this civilization endured for nearly 3,000 years,
Wow.
witnessing the rise and fall of countless dynasties until the arrival of Alexander the Great in 332 BCE.
Almost 3,000 years. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around that kind of longevity. And it's interesting to consider how that era concluded, at least symbolically for many, with the well-known figure of Cleopatra, right? I mean, most people, if they're thinking about the end of ancient Egypt, they think about Cleopatra.
Exactly. While Alexander's conquest was a major turning point, Cleopatra's, centuries later, really represents the final chapter of independent Egyptian rule. Her famous story unfolds at the very end of this vast historical narrative.
Right, at the very end. Okay.
Now, within this immense span of time, one of the most enduring and visible legacies of their civilization is undoubtedly their monumental architecture.
Yeah. And when we talk about monuments, the Great Pyramid of Giza immediately springs to mind for most people. I mean, if you say ancient Egypt 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to say, oh, the pyramids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our sources rightly point to this as a perfect illustration of their capabilities. I mean, built around 2560 BCE during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, it's almost unbelievable to consider the level of skill and coordinated effort required to construct something of that scale.
Absolutely. The sheer size is breathtaking.
Yeah.
Its original height of 481 feet,
Wow.
which, to give you a sense of scale, is taller than a 40-story skyscraper,
It's hard to imagine.
made it the tallest human-made structure on Earth for over 3,800 years.
Wow.
That's not just an architectural achievement. It speaks volumes about their advanced engineering, the profound religious beliefs that inspired such massive undertakings, and their impressive ability to organize vast numbers of people and resources.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it for a second. The stones were fitted together with such precision that you can barely slide a piece of paper between them.
Wow.
Imagine the engineering challenges.
It's mind-boggling. And that's just one pyramid. I
Yeah.
mean, they built so many incredible things.
They're truly remarkable.
So here's where it gets really interesting because these incredible achievements didn't just materialize out of thin air. There were so many interconnected factors that enabled this civilization to thrive.
Yeah.
Our sources highlight some key areas that help us understand this intricate web.
Yeah.
Let's start with the very foundation, the land itself, and the crucial role of the Nile.
Geography, as our source emphasizes, was absolutely fundamental.
Right.
And the Nile River was truly the lifeblood of ancient Egypt.
I mean, they even called it the gift of the Nile, right?
They did. And what's fascinating here is the dependable rhythm of the Nile's annual floods. This wasn't merely a destructive event. It was the very process that replenished the soil with essential nutrients, creating the fertile land necessary for their agriculture.
It's almost like this predictable rhythm
Yeah.
really set them up for success.
I think so. Beyond just fertile land, the Nile's predictable flooding likely fostered a sense of cosmic order and divine benevolence in their worldview, directly influencing their religious beliefs and the stability of their long-lasting kingdom.
Right.
A stark contrast to civilizations facing unpredictable environmental challenges.
Yeah, facing things like droughts or, just completely unpredictable weather patterns. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This agricultural surplus, in turn, provided the economic stability that allowed for the development of a complex society, including the resources for those monumental building projects.
So the predictable cycle of the river essentially dictated the rhythm of Egyptian life and their prosperity. It's such a critical element to understand. And then deeply intertwined with their daily lives and their grand constructions were their spiritual beliefs. The Egyptians had a famously complex pantheon of gods.
Indeed, understanding their pantheon, which is essentially their collection of gods and goddesses, is key to understanding their worldview.
Yeah.
Deities like Ra, the sun god, Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, and Osiris, the god of the afterlife, weren't just abstract figures. They were integral to their understanding of the cosmos, the natural world, and their place within it.
These weren't just, gods that were off somewhere else. They were
Mhm.
very much a part of daily life.
They permeated every aspect of life.
Yeah.
Their myths and rituals permeated every aspect of Egyptian life, from their farming practices to their system of governance, and of course their elaborate burial customs.
Yeah, which leads us directly to another vital area, how they communicated and preserved their beliefs and their history. And that brings us to the world of hieroglyphics.
Hmm. What's truly captivating is that hieroglyphics wasn't just a decorative script. It was a sophisticated writing system, one of the earliest forms of writing.
Yeah, for centuries, people had no idea what these symbols meant.
For centuries, it remained a puzzle. But its eventual decipherment unlocked an immense treasure trove of information about their history, their religion, their laws, and their daily lives.
So, what kind of things did we learn?
Well, the decipherment, for example, revealed a sophisticated legal system, including surprisingly modern concepts of contracts and property rights, challenging the notion of purely autocratic rule. It truly allowed their civilization to speak to us across the millennia.
Wow. I mean, it's almost like getting a firsthand account
In a way, yeah.
of what life was like back then.
Yeah.
Amazing. And when they were expressing themselves, whether in writing or through physical creations, there was often a very intentional symbolism at play, particularly in their art and architecture. It wasn't just about building imposing structures or crafting beautiful objects.
Exactly as our source points out, Egyptian art and architecture were deeply interwoven with their religious beliefs.
Mm.
The way they depicted their gods, goddesses, and pharaohs was highly stylized and packed with symbolic meaning. Every detail, from their posture to their headdress to the colors used, conveyed specific information about the individual's status, power, and connection to the divine.
So nothing was arbitrary.
No,
It was very much by design.
absolutely.
Interesting.
Even beyond the pyramids, consider the towering temple complexes with their intricate carvings and colossal statues. They were all designed to communicate specific religious and political messages.
So they were sending a message.
They were absolutely sending a message.
Okay. And speaking of communicating with the divine, let's delve into one of the most iconic aspects of ancient Egypt, their elaborate burial practices. It's something that has always captured the popular imagination and perhaps even resonates with how some people today meticulously plan their retirement or legacies.
Hmm.
A focus on the future, just a very different kind of future.
It is a different kind of future, and what's crucial to grasp here is that their burial practices, including mummification and the construction of elaborate tombs, particularly in the Valley of the Kings, were driven by their profound beliefs about the afterlife.
Right.
They believed in the preservation of the body as essential for the soul's journey into the next world.
It wasn't just about, burying the dead. It was about preparing them for this whole other life.
It was a very important process. The sheer effort and resources they devoted to these practices underscore the central importance of the afterlife in their worldview.
It's almost as if their entire earthly existence was a preparation for what awaited them.
That's one way to look at it.
It's a very different perspective from how many view life today. Now, our sources also shed light on some fascinating outside-the-box achievements, which I always find particularly interesting. One of these is their development of a calendar. I mean, that seems so basic to us today, but
It is, but back then it was a revolutionary idea.
yeah.
This is a truly significant detail. The Egyptians developed one of the first solar calendars, and its influence on our modern system of timekeeping is undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, we still use a solar calendar today.
We do, and their need to accurately predict the Nile floods likely spurred their advancements in astronomy and timekeeping.
Right, so it was driven by necessity.
It was. The Egyptian calendar consisted of 12 months of 30 days each, plus 5 extra days at the end of the year dedicated to the birth of their gods.
I see.
This structure, born from practical necessity, laid the groundwork for the calendar we use today. It's a great example of how their practical needs led to remarkable intellectual achievements.
Yeah, absolutely. And another fascinating area that challenges some common assumptions is the role of women in ancient Egyptian society. We often picture it as a very patriarchal society,
Yes.
but there were some notable exceptions who wielded considerable influence.
Precisely while it was largely a patriarchal society, the emergence of powerful female figures like Hatshepsut, who famously ruled as pharaoh,
Wow.
and Nefertiti, with her immense political and religious influence alongside her husband Akhenaten, demonstrates that women could and did challenge traditional gender roles and wield significant power. Hatshepsut, for example, not only ruled for over 2 decades, but also commissioned significant building projects and even led military expeditions, often depicted in male pharaonic regalia, to assert her authority.
So she was really trying to, break down those barriers.
She was a remarkable figure. Their stories offer a more nuanced understanding of gender dynamics in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, absolutely. These glimpses into their daily lives and societal structures really paint a much richer picture than just the grand monuments. Now let's turn our attention to some of the key figures and moments that stand out in this long history. We've already mentioned Cleopatra, but going further back, Tutankhamun is a name that almost everyone recognizes.
Tutankhamun, often referred to as the Boy King, is indeed a pivotal figure, largely due to the extraordinary discovery of his nearly intact tomb in 1922 by Howard Carter.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that his tomb was almost completely undisturbed.
It was a remarkable find.
Yeah.
While his reign was relatively short and perhaps not the most historically significant in terms of political or military achievements, the sheer wealth and preservation of his burial chamber provided an unparalleled glimpse into the funerary practices and material culture of the time, igniting global fascination with Egyptology and bringing the past vividly to life.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the treasures that were found in his tomb.
It was an incredible find. The sheer volume of artifacts, from chariots to jewelry to statues, offered an unprecedented look at the artistry and craftsmanship of the era.
It truly brought ancient Egypt to life for the modern world in a way that nothing else had. And then there's Ramses II, or Ramses the Great, who seems to have left his mark everywhere across Egypt.
Ramses II certainly lived up to his grand title.
Yeah, he had a really long reign, right?
He did. His exceptionally long reign was marked by significant architectural endeavors. He commissioned countless temples and monuments, including the impressive Abu Simbel, as well as considerable military strength and strategic maneuvering. He's a figure who truly embodies the power and ambition we often associate with the great pharaohs, and his efforts to inscribe his legacy across the land ensured his name would be remembered for millennia.
And speaking of tangible remnants of their daily lives, I was particularly struck by the mention of the potential invention of toothpaste.
Oh, yes.
A papyrus from the 4th century AD, which as you mentioned is a later period but still ancient, describes ingredients like powdered ashes and burnt eggshells for dental care.
It's quite fascinating.
It's a fun and fascinating detail that reminds us these were real people with everyday concerns, including keeping their teeth clean.
It's precisely those kinds of details that truly bridge the gap between us and this ancient civilization. It reminds us that while their world was in many ways different, they shared fundamental human needs and a drive for innovation.
Yeah, and that drive for innovation and their numerous achievements left an enduring legacy that continues to shape our world in surprising ways.
Absolutely.
It's easy to think of ancient civilizations as being completely separate from our modern lives, but Egypt's influence is surprisingly pervasive, isn't it?
Our source rightly emphasizes that their legacy extends far beyond the physical monuments that still stand.
Right.
Their advancements in fields like medicine, engineering, and governance laid crucial foundations upon which later societies built. Think about early surgical techniques, their detailed understanding of anatomy, their sophisticated irrigation systems that transformed arid landscapes, and even early forms of bureaucratic administration necessary to manage a large and complex state. These were all groundbreaking developments that had ripple effects across history.
It's genuinely inspiring to consider their perseverance and creativity. Despite the challenges they faced, the harsh desert environment, the cyclical floods, the political shifts over such a long period, they built this incredibly resilient and innovative civilization that thrived for millennia.
And that resilience, that ability to adapt and innovate in the face of significant challenges, is perhaps one of the most enduring lessons we can take away from their history. It speaks to a fundamental aspect of human nature that continues to be relevant today.
Absolutely. So as we bring this deep dive into ancient Egypt to a close, we've explored their remarkable timeline, the colossal scale of their architecture, the vital role of the Nile, their intricate spiritual beliefs, their ingenious writing system, the rich symbolism in their art, their fascinating burial practices, rooted in their views of the afterlife, their early contributions to timekeeping, the surprising power held by some of their female figures, and the lasting impact of key individuals like Tutankhamun and Ramses II. It's abundantly clear that ancient Egypt was so much more than just pyramids and mummies.
Indeed, what we've really glimpsed is a profoundly complex and sophisticated society that made foundational contributions to human civilization across a wide range of fields. And despite the vast amount of knowledge we've accumulated, there are still countless mysteries waiting to be uncovered, so many more layers to peel back in the sands of time.
And that makes me think about, we've learned so much about their civilization, but there's still so much more to learn, and there are so many more civilizations that we could explore in the same way.
There-
And it really makes you wonder what future civilizations will uncover about our own society, thousands of years from now. What will they think about our accomplishments and our failures?
It's a fascinating question to consider.
It really is. And I
Yeah.
think that's a perfect place to leave it for today. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into ancient Egypt, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of history.
Until next time.
Bye!
Bye.